I thought I'd read on a little bit out of The Winged, or not the, just Winged Pharaoh, written by Joan Grant, published 1937. It was her first farm memory book. We are now at chapter 16, which intrigued me. It plays before the flood, before the time of Babylon, in the old Egypt. Chapter 16, The Spirit. One morning before sunrise, Nea, her brother, and I went with father to the little pavilion beside the marsh to watch the morning flight of birds. Nea had brought some tablets of baked clay, and with a reed and black ink he had drawn a flying swan in a few strokes. When I tried to draw birds, they looked dead, and quite often they didn't look like birds at all. As I watched them, I wondered why this was. We had the same parents, we were very alike, I was always with him, and the same drawing scribe had given us lessons. And I wondered also why it was that, when I got angry, I wanted to throw things at people and say all that was on my mind. But when Nea was angry, he seemed to go away inside himself, and sometimes his eye would say all the things that his lips held back, and sometimes they would be like curtained windows. Father asked me my thoughts, and I told them to him. And while we were eating our breakfast of fruit, he said, "Before I can answer the questions in your thoughts, I must tell you of your spirit. As I have already taught you, we are made of body, soul, and spirit. The body is the ka ibis, and the ka. This is the outer covering of our soul and spirit, through which we gain experience on earth, and when the body dies, the ka and the ka ibis die also. Our soul is the ba and the nam, and these we have need of as long as our spirit must be reborn upon earth, and that is until we have learned to master our emotions, our thoughts and our will. And that leaves spirit, which is the only part of ourselves that endures forever. While we are on earth, we can think of much that is permanent, and we do this every time we think of those things which the nam does not embrace. I asked, how can I be sure that something I think about belongs to the nam part of myself? And he said, all things that can be apprehended by the five senses of the body are things of form, and therefore of the nam. But you cannot see or taste or touch qualities. You cannot smell courage or hear patience, for they are beyond the limitations of form as we know it. When you think of qualities, you think of them with a part of your spirit called the za. You know the divisions of the body and of the soul, and how they are written. The za, with which we think of things that are permanent, is written as a circle, with the grid lines inside it like a sieve. For just as a sieve can sift stones from dust, so does the za sift the dust of earth, which is blown upon the wind and is no more seen from the rocks of truth which endure through time. And I asked Father why he didn't write his name as a sieve, and he said it could be written so, although usually in his seal he put the reed bundle or the snake and the arm, which were the sound signs for his name. The great Menes had called him Za, saying that it was a good name for a ruler who could sift truth from falsehood, and so give justice. The Za is the first part of your spirit. The second part of your spirit is that wherein is stored the memory of every experience that you have undergone since that moment when, having gained all experience possible in the realm of animals, you are first born a human being and could say, I am I. I am I. It is the voice of this, your own individual experience, that says to you, to do this is wise, here is safety, there lies danger. I said, yes, Father, but I've never been bitten by a snake, and yet I fear them. And Nea has never fallen from a height, yet he fears them. Nea started to protest, but I said, it's no good you're trying to pretend, Nea. I know it quite well. And he wriggled his toes as he always did when he had to admit something. And he said reluctantly, Heights do give me rather a horrid feeling. But you needn't have said so. Father smiled and went on. Through your many lives, the two of you have undergone different experiences, and these experiences will have brought their several results. Those that were happy you will wish to repeat, and those that brought pain or sorrow you will avoid. But until you have both reached the end of the journey, there must always be those things Nea has learned, which you lack, and other things you have learned, which he lacks. The actions or the fears of another are easy to understand when they are the same as your own. But when one sees another do something that makes the inward voice of memory say, "That is wrong," an ignorant man would say, "He has sinned as I would never sin. He is beneath me and unworthy of my compassion." But they who say this are foolish, for they have forgotten truth, even as they have forgotten themselves. For that inward voice is born of their own suffering as a result of that same fault, which they now condemn. If they listened wisely to that voice, not only would they know that their feet had once been in the same mire, but also they would remember the path that had led them back to firm ground. And in remembering the path, they would be able to point the way to the one whom they, in their foolishness, had called a sinner, but whom a wise man would have known as a fellow traveller, who for a little time had lost his way on the great journey. And in that knowledge is compassion, and compassion is the fruit of experience. And Nea said, "But Father, if I see a man doing something that I know is wrong, surely I should try to stop him and not just feel compassion for him." I said compassion, not pity. By pity I mean he who goes to a sorrowing one and sits beside him weeping, or he who, seeing a gaping wound, says, "Oh, the blood, the pain, I cannot bear to see such suffering," and sits lamenting beside the wounded one, and lamenting so loudly that the sufferer's groans are drowned in the cries of pity, which is often just self-pity, that he should be brought so near to another's pain and sorrow. But pity is the first step to gaining of compassion. Now a man who has true compassion, if he finds one bowed down with sorrow, knows what has caused those tears to flow, and knowing it, knows how to stem them. For he realizes, and he may even remember, that he too has shed many tears, and in his time has thought that night was eternal and knew no dawn. He will show him that all sorrow must one day turn to joy, and when the weeping one would wipe away his tears, he will find that they have already dried upon his cheeks. And the wise man does not increase the burdens of others by the noise of lamentation, but tries to heal their wounds, or, if they are too deep for earthly help, he comforts the spirit as it leaves its tired body. And so, Nea and Sikita, listen to the voice of your memory. If you wish your journey to be swift, let your actions be such that in future the voice cries out, "This is right, this is the way," rather than, "Go not there, for that is wrong." But few there are on a long journey who do not often leave the right path. For strange it is that though a man finds his way beset with thorns, he often struggles there, because his pride will not let him admit that he has lost his way. Although, if he would but listen, there are those who call to him to turn back and follow in the footprints that they have left. My children, the day may come when you will rule. Always remember that all in your country, and all people of the many races and colors that dwell on earth, be they friend or enemy, equals or slaves, all are fellow travelers on the same long journey, and one day they shall be with you in that great brotherhood to which all must attain. Father was sitting very still with his hands clasped round his knees, looking far away to the horizon. I think he spoke to us not as children, but as our true selves. Then he moved and said that we have been having far too solemn a conversation, and he would have talked of other things, but Nea wouldn't let him, and asked how the memory part of the spirit was written. Father took the reed from Nea's hand and drew a jar. For a jar holds fluid, which of all earthly substances are nearest to that which has not earthly form. When a man is born for the first time, his jar of memory is empty. Gradually, through his many lives, it is filled. At first, much of that which fills it belongs to earth, and the water in the jar is muddy. Later, those things are not part of the perfect whole. Still, cloud the now clearer water of the jar. But when the spirit is cleansed of earth and has gained all experience, the muddy water will be clear, and it will be as if the jar were filled with liquid light. And it is called the ma'at, truth, for truth is those burnished qualities that remain after the spirit has freed itself from earth and can take passage in the boat of time. The Spirit, Chapter 16. Chapter 17 is My Mother's Anniversary. Happy days.